All right. So again, thank you for joining. I just kicked off our recording. So just a little disclaimer for everybody that we're going to record and transcribe these calls. So you will be in an area that is not only recorded, but then we're going to share those out after the fact for folks that can't make it. We want to thank you a ton for making some time today. You are in our newly launched Healthcare and Life Sciences Power Platform User Group. We encourage you to invite colleagues, friends, and continue to drive some participation. I think we're already approaching 130 members on our community group. You'll find a forum on that community group if you want to post questions. We'll have people from Microsoft as well as partners and other community members monitoring it. You can also message me on there. I've got my email on here if you have any questions or comments, concerns. Today we've got two really fantastic presenters. I've seen the presentation on a dry run a couple times, and I think it's one you're not going to want to miss. Felipe and Alex are with us from Boston Scientific, and they're both in charge of Power Platform Administration. So they have some really great hands-on experience with citizen development, the culture of change that comes with the Power Platform, and some other neat tips and tricks for you. So I'm really looking forward to this. We do have a Q&A feature enabled on the Teams meeting, so if you have any questions, please post them there. We are going to hold those until the end, and we'll have a little discussion after the fact. I don't think we have wall-to-wall content for you. If you have ideas or if there's something you're particularly looking to get out of this community, feel free to post that in the QA as well. You can also put it on the forum on the community website if you've joined there. And if you're interested in presenting, you can reach out to me via that same community. There's a message functionality that lets you message us as leaders. You can also reach out to me there with my email. It's just scottdwyer, one word, @microsoft.com. And if you haven't already, please mark your calendars for our next session. We're looking at February 22nd. It'll be 12 Central Time. Happens to be my local time zone. I'm in Milwaukee. And we'll get an event set up for that here shortly. It'll be similar to this last one where there'll be a LinkedIn event that kind of takes you through to the Teams meeting. And then you can also, if you haven't found it yet, on the events tab in the community portal, there's a way you can add that session to your calendar there directly as well to hold that time. So I'll get that up later today just so folks can create a single place to hold the time on their calendar as needed. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Felipe and to the Boston Scientific folks and sit back, relax, and hopefully enjoy a great little bit of content today. Guys, you're still on. There you go.
Everyone, it's good to be here and see so many of you sharing this first session with us. Along with Alex, I'm part of the Power Platform Administration team at Boston Scientific. And I have been part of the Power Platform adoption here, and I'm also collaborating with our Citizen Development Program. It's been definitely a great experience, and I'm hoping to share it with you today.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I work with the administration team at Boston Scientific as well, and we're also part of the Power Platform Development Services Unit and the Citizen Development Program. We both have been working together for about 4 years, I think. So a lot of different experiences about the Power Platform that we'll love to share with you.
Okay, so we will kick off today's session sharing with you our experience on how to transform Shadow IT to be a strategic asset. We will expand on how citizen developers contribute to value creation. We will move forward with some points to help you understand what is the role of the Power Platform in citizen development. And we will finish by giving you 10 action points to consider before kicking off a citizen development program. The intention of bringing this topic to the forum is to help you understand what's the opportunity that citizen development could represent for your company and what needs to be considered to enable your organization for citizen development.
So I would like to start by giving you some context on the meaning of Shadow IT. Some time ago, when you use the expression Shadow IT, it will refer to unauthorized digital services, applications, or even hardware without the formal authorization and supervision of your IT department. That concept is still valid these days, but has evolved to now including not just unauthorized applications, but also using authorized applications in a way that IT is not aware of. With the democratization that we have experienced in the last years and that those services such as the Power Platform represents, it's easy to notice how the IT shadows has grown exponentially. And of course, that represents a risk for any company and a nightmare for our IT departments. In words of James Kaplan, partner of IT infrastructure at McKinsey, I quote, "There's always a tension between enterprise control and business unit flexibility. Many organizations have figured out either how to create effective enterprise utilities or how to create a high degree of scale and professionalism in each business unit. Close quote. The reality is that even with the risk that is worth acknowledging, a zero trust policy is never the solution. And in our experience, it has clearly proved two things. One, people as water will always find a way. And the second one is that zero trust policies that restricts your business from embracing their capacity to solve their own problems are innovation killers. Organizations that embrace programs such as citizen development have shown at least a 33% of increase in their innovation score. I can tell you that here at Boston Scientific, being an innovation-driven company, the value that we obtain from bottom-up innovation is key to our success. And I'll give you a quick example called Recap. This is a solution that uses Power Apps, Automate, BI, and Dataverse that has produced multiple automations in our endoscopy and neurology divisions in just its first year. It registered value improvement savings superior than $600,000 just for one division. And as I mentioned, it's being used by two and assessed by other three. So of course, these are extraordinary results for a solution that was initially created by two citizen developers. Nonetheless, its success is also explained by the role that IT had during the development, helping these two individuals take this development to the final line, and of course, being proactive in assessing not just the risk, but also the opportunity that it represents. Because when IT and the business work together, they can transform risky but really useful shadow IT into a source of innovation and speed. Now, the natural question would be how you can reach that level of integration between shadow IT and formal IT. And I'll tell you that, in our opinion, the first thing that you need to understand is the mindset change that needs to happen all over your organization to enable it for citizen development. Because citizen development takes the power that used to be centralized in IT and gives it to the business. Obviously, IT performs a key role in citizen development being successful, but in a lot of cases, it may lose the power of saying no. And there needs to be an effective change management strategy that can be able to switch the mindset of those who love the power of saying no and exchange it with the spirit of service. You will have in a lot of cases people reaching out with really good and impactful ideas, but that will probably barely know what they are doing. And if you or your IT team, from the analysts to the architects, doesn't know how to deal with citizen developers, they could easily kill the motivation to innovate by just trying to protect your company. But at the same time, of course, you can't allow citizen developers or anyone to do whatever comes to their minds, right?
That's right. That's why, in our opinion, the key to reach that synergy is identifying and properly defining the line between the scope of citizen developers and formal IT developers. You need to make sure that there is no stepping over. Typically, shadow IT being formed of business users tends to focus on client needs and business operations, making use of no-code and low-code tools, while formal IT will focus on development and operations, making and working together with the use of low-code and pro-code, and with more formalized development processes and experts, of course. You also need to make sure that there are roles that can serve as a liaison between IT, operations, and citizen developers, as for example, a governance lead or applications lead. IT also needs to be able to ensure the scope, the quality, and the regulatory compliance of what is being built. And I know that that just may sound like, great, you're just giving us more work, and it does require more work, but way less than not doing anything about it. And there are a lot of tools that can help you to automate these tasks, as for example, the Center of Excellence Toolkit that we use in Boston Scientific, and has helped us to keep the workload under control, being an organization with more than 6,000 apps. So that is a lot of help. And finally, we think that nowadays, pretty much everyone should become a risk manager, but especially your citizen developers. They need to be taught to assess the sensitivity of the data, the impact of their solutions, and of course, the business value of their work.
In our experience, this is one of the key success factors. If you teach your people to understand what the metrics are to measure business value, they will come up with stronger business cases that will end up with higher acceptance rates. And measuring value drivers as performance improvement, direct or indirect cost savings, as well as risk mitigation or even business transformation, can be as simple as asking themselves key questions as, what will I do with the time freed up for the solution, for example? Now, citizen development not only requires a mindset change, right? But it's also truly an investment in all the sense of the word. That's why it also needs to be assessed against your organization's priorities. And what citizen development means for Boston Scientific may not be exactly the same for your company. There are different ways that citizen developers can contribute to value creation, depending on your organization schema, but we can mention at least 3 of those. The first example is augmenting applications. In VSI, that means that citizen developers collaborate to build applications that may fill missing features in the core systems. For example, they could create a new front-end flow and connect it to the existing legacy system, or they may create an analytics center with the help of BI and automate as recap, for example. The second one is prototyping new ideas, basically with the purpose of testing and evaluating new concepts. With the Power Platform, as we know, moving from a mock-up to a production application can be done quickly in many scenarios, so citizen developers can come really handy in these kind of tasks. And finally, when co-building big apps, citizen developers can be part of the team that defines requirements, develop front-end flows, and provide local logic, for example. Let's remember that citizen developers also are most of the time the subject matter experts on what they are trying to improve. And in some cases, they may even be the end users. So having them being part of the process can be truly beneficial.
As you can see, IT is also part of the process, but its involvement may be different depending on the different development types. IT will shift to the left on no-code or low-code developments, and will move to the right on developments that requires a higher level of supervision and that may impact core and enterprise solution. This model works because IT basically enables a level of support that isn't too intrusive depending on the development type. And that, of course, also represents a big relief for IT service.
Now, let's talk about the role of the Power Platform in citizen development. For us at Boston Scientific, nurturing our citizen developers and continue driving innovation by empowering people, it's a priority. But I have to say that without knowing that we'll have the right tools for our governance requirements, that wouldn't be possible. The Power Platform offering, well, I have to say that doesn't meet at 100% our needs. It's constantly evolving, and we like that a lot. Having an environment strategy, for example, was one of the first actions that we took. And now knowing that there are features as managed environments that can even enhance that experience shows that we took the right decision. The Center of Excellence Starter Kit is definitely our first browser bookmark. If you're thinking about moving forward with the citizen development program, we'll fully recommend it because you just can't control what you can't see. And the place to get the insights about your tenant is the COE. Now, it's important to recognize that it's not enough to just have the COE installed, right? You also need to customize it according to your organization needs. And this starter kit is full of components really useful for citizen development governance. I can also mention, for example, the Developer Compliance Center. We use this tool as our preventive measure to make sure that any development is properly documented and available to also be audited by the administration team if it's needed. We also used recently the audit tool, and it has helped us to collect information for about 2,000 apps that had missing compliance info. The DLP editor, for example, allows you to pretty easily see what's the impact of making changes to a DLP, and that honestly is really helpful to avoid service disruptions as admins. We also have some business units in Colombia and Brazil that have fusion teams, basically teams that with citizen and pro developers working together. And we know that they have been getting a lot of value from moving their solutions with a couple clicks from one environment to another using pipelines. And all of these tools, at the end of the day, produce a platform that promotes a self-service approach, meaning that the admin team is not a POC for every single thing related to the Power Platform service offering. For example, the environment's assignment process, environment's cleanup, and the app's compliance process, it's fully automated in our company. And we make this information available to the platform users through our communications hub.
So we probably have reached this level of efficiency because one day we asked ourselves, where would we like to take the company in terms of Power Platform maturity? And the response to that question was the maturity framework assessment. This has been our main tool to determine what our current position is and what we need to do in order to move forward. On our first days during this assessment, we discovered that the Power Platform usage in the company was way bigger than we originally thought. Probably any of you that also work as admins share the experience of installing the COE toolkit and seeing for the first time that unexpected surprise of seeing so much different parts moving everywhere and actually alive. And that's because the Power Platform becomes part of the business, just as Excel, Outlook, it becomes part of everyday tasks for people. And that's why I like the maturity assessment framework so much, because it helps you to measure your progress with the Power Platform, not just in terms of governance, but with an integral view in your whole business. You will find guidance on strategy and vision, business value, nurturing citizen makers, automation, fusion teams, support, and of course, administration and governance. And I really like that the first point of this assessment is developing your own strategy and vision for the Power Platform. We, as part of the healthcare industry, knew since the very beginning that generating automation focus on our supply chain functions was one of the priorities. So we designed our support model in a way that it prioritizes these functions. So this and any framework is not to be followed blindly, of course. And I think Alex will agree with me that we made so much changes to it that at the end of the day, we had our own framework. And that's what we will suggest you to do too. So use Microsoft guidance, but build your own strategy and vision based on what really matters to you and for your stakeholders, of course. So we would like to close the presentation with the 10 action points to consider before kicking off a citizen development journey. And we will just mention this, but hopefully we will be able to go in depth in a future session. So the first I would like to mention is consider your company's potential for citizen development. Citizen developers really may contribute in a lot of different ways. And what citizen development means for Boston Scientific could differ to the priorities that your organization has. So make sure that not only assess the appetite for innovation, but also the direction in which those innovation efforts will be focused. The second one is to make sure to get your management on board. Citizen development is a disruptive concept, so I will highly recommend you to be patient with your management, use top-down communication, and focus on the business value as well as in the risk mitigation. That is what has worked for us in the past, so we really recommend it. The third one is set realistic goals and expectations for your program. Depending on your company's maturity with the Power Platform, for example, you may have to lower your expectations and consider starting small and eventually evolve your program in line with your company's Power Platform adoption progress. If you use the maturity framework that we mentioned before, you will be able to assess where you are and what you need to do to move forward. Now, number 4 is getting the right sets of tools in place. Inside the COE toolkit, you have the nurture model, the innovation backlog, the ALM accelerator, governance module, and many other tools that can be tailored to your needs and help you manage the risk of shadow IT. Number 5 is setting up clear roles and responsibilities. Let's remember that for Power Platform, you don't have an administration role, you have an administration team. And if you're interested in citizen development, you need to consider at least 3 roles inside that team: the governance lead, the applications lead, and the skilling lead. And each of these with different responsibilities and focus areas, of course.
Following with number 6, we will suggest you to build a strong governance plan. As we mentioned in the beginning, the risks involved with shadow IT needs to be properly addressed. For us, the key point is having a good environment strategy where you have configured different layers of security per business function, child business units, and even teams. Having also different data loss policies in place, I think it's super important to restrict what comes in and what goes out of your company. In BSI, for example, we have stronger DLPs for our citizen developers than the ones that we have for our pro developers. And that actually leads me to number 7, develop a training plan for your citizen developers. Help them to understand how they can make their skill set evolve and eventually become power users or pro developers. In our case, we have set minimum requirements to start working as a citizen developers, but you will have to get to a certain level to work with more complex solutions. And that's our suggestion for number 8. Define what's suitable and what is not for citizen development. It will depend on your organization's approach, but you can consider, as we have done, parameters related to business criticality, as the number of users or the data, or some data security requirements, or parameters related to the app complexity, as the simplicity of the user interface, or the amount of integration with data sources. Almost finishing with number 9, we'll suggest you to set a support prioritization model. Look for automation and self-service as much as possible. It's impossible to provide the same level of attention to everyone. So take advantage of your power users, your pro developers, or even other business functions that can be defined as local service hubs for citizen development. In BSIs, for example, we have our GBS function and our COEs that are aligned with our main citizen development program and provide citizen development support. And our final recommendation will be to set up a communications hub. for people that will be joining your company, for people that are already there, and for those who may have forgot your last presentation, have single source of truth where everyone at your company can understand what it means being a citizen developer, what's the journey about, what tools are available, and of course, how governance is applied in your organization. So hopefully these 10 actions can give you some guidance on what you need to consider before kicking off your program. And if you're still not there, but considering citizen development, we really hope that this presentation gave you more context about what this opportunity could mean for your organization. Thank you very much for your attention. I'll give the word back to Scott.
And Alex, actually, I'm going to take it here for a second. This is Randall. We do have a question in the chat from Michael Fettner, who's asking, do you have all of your end users licensed with premium per user plans? We find our hands are tied with some features like managed environments as our users don't have premium licenses.
Yeah, that's right. In Boston Scientific, we don't have all our end users with licenses. We try to promote as much as possible using standard connectors in their applications, just in terms of sustainability. But there are definitely some specific use cases and also some specific business functions that are supported by IT, providing them licensing. And in terms of administration, I know that managed environments is actually a feature that you have to pay for, but in the general sense, having an environment strategy, it doesn't depend 100% on managed environments. Managed environments is actually a pretty recent feature, and there are all the ways that you can still have a strong environment strategy and you can keep control over your environments. Personally, I would recommend avoid creating a lot of environments. That's what we have seen in other companies. You get there and they have environments for every single thing. And the reality is that, as I did mention, you have different layers of security. Inside of an environment, you have business unit, you have teams as well. And some of those teams could even collaborate with people from other environments. So try to use as much as possible the features that you have inside of an environment's configuration. And I'm sure that will be enough to have a strong environment strategy.
Great, thanks, Alex. Another question from David Dean. Can you talk about your journey working with governance, security, audit, and compliance teams to onboard citizen devs or dev solutions while trying to navigate your organization's secure application development standards and policies?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I can say from our experience that one of the first steps that we took was speaking with the director of the collaboration workspace at our company where the Power Platform sits. So what we did was trying to use, as Felipe mentioned, top-down communication to explain what's the business value of having a strong governance applied to Power Platform. And once we have them on board, we move forward to speak with our cybersecurity analysts. They were actually doing a rewriting of our data security policies. So we took that opportunity to include the Power Platform and other local technologies. Right? So having that inside of our policies help us to move forward with the audit with the support for legal department and other functions. So what we did was perform a pretty simple, you may say, audit with quick questions that anyone could answer. So I will say that around the 60% of all the apps that we had were audited on this way, and the rest were audited with fieldwork. So what we did was going and seeing what was the criticality of their applications, what was the business justification, what kind of support they may need. And all of this was based on our support prioritization model. So basically, we define you will have in the top critical apps, apps that support whole business functions or that have a high number of users, important apps, apps that serve for collaboration purposes, and that also has more than 10 users, for example, and you'll have in the bottom personal productivity apps, right? Apps that people may create and share maybe with other 3 to 5 users, but that doesn't have connections with our data sources or core systems or anything that will compromise our company. So once we had our support model defined, that's what we use to go and perform the audit and understand which applications and which solutions needed more attention from our side. So I think that the audit is super helpful because it will help you to understand what you really have in your tenant, right? And once you understand that, you will also understand what are the requirements for governance and the requirements for support. So once you have the results of the audit, you can move forward to plan a governance, develop a governance plan, an environment strategy. I think it's super important to be really communicative with all changes that are happening, because once again, citizen developers are business users and they may not even understand what's the audit about or what's a DLP, etc. So I think it's necessary to have also a good vocabulary to help them understand and basically enable citizen development by teaching people what it means and by teaching your IT functions how to support citizen development as well.
Great. We got a couple more here, and I'm going to try my best on this name, but I think it's Spyro Bukalis. One question he has is, any tips on mitigating for citizens who are creating solutions but not declaring them and not following process or governance?
Yeah, of course, that's good. Well, what we did, I mean, for a company as Boston Scientific, keeping supervision of everything that we have in our tenant is super difficult. But what we did is, as I did mention, using the developer compliance center. You have a lot of different components that you can use from that component, and it will help you basically keep that supervision. For example, I think that one of the automations that we have is that every time someone creates a new app, they will receive an email immediately asking them for some details about that application, right? So that's part of what we have done. If a user, for example, leaves the company, his manager will receive another automation and an active card, basically asking them to take action on what its former employee left in the company, right? If they want to take the ownership, if they don't want to transfer it to someone else, or if they want to contact the support team. So you will always have two paths of action, right? Preventive measures and reactive measures. I'll say that reactive measures are audit, and preventive measures are all of those kind of automations that make sure that people are submitting the details on time and are collaborating, right? Now, you can also take other levels of actions as escalating if people is not responding, or even putting their applications on quarantine, as we have done a couple times. I think that citizen development, once again, I really like to say that it's like that phrase of that movie, I think it's called Ratatouille. Not everyone can cook, but a good chef can come from anywhere. Same thing, we want to let them use the kitchen, but we need to make sure that they won't burn it down, right?
Great. I always love a good Ratatouille reference. Another question. So what tool do you use to capture use case and value and then to report on actualization? For example, how do you know how much value your citizens have added in terms of hours saved, etc.?
That's great. Well, one of the things that we did was aligning the citizen development program with other initiatives and standards that we follow in Boston Scientific. We have our VIP program, or Value Improvement Savings program, and that has a standard form that you have to fill that basically translates any kind of value improvement into monetary amounts, right? So that's what we do. We use our VIP system to measure what's the business value of citizen developers. And when they do an entry in the VIP system, that's labeled with their names, and we can identify that it comes from a citizen developer. So that helps us to get those insights out.
Just Spyro, if you don't mind putting it in the chat, we've kind of disabled the microphone, so I'll pick it up on the chat and provide that to Alex and Felipe. We have another question in from David Dean. Does your company have any initiatives on migrating legacy citizen low-code technologies, Access, InfoPath, SharePoint workflows, etc.? And if so, how is it going? Have you run into any challenges on the redevelopment process?
Yeah, definitely. I think that one of our experiences was related to Lotus Notes from IBM. Um, that was one of the hardest. I think that when this is not being managed correctly, it could even traumatize people. Because once again, citizen development, it's a great opportunity, but when shadow IT is not properly managed, it becomes a risk, and in a lot of cases, it ends up being a problem for the company. So I think that part of what we have done, trying to help companies to understand how they can migrate from legacy low-code tools to Power Platform tools, is putting the focus on what are the security capabilities that the Power Platform has. What's the difference of the Power Platform with this legacy systems, right? How they can avoid having the same level of problems. And I will say that in terms of migrating data, migrating resources, the Power Platform doesn't really have competence, because any competence of the Power Platform is a connector, right? So you will have a standard connector that you can use, or you will have the capacity to create a custom connector. So that's what we have done to move data from legacy systems into the Power Platform. And as I mentioned, educating people about the Power Platform security capabilities, I think it's one of the key points.
Great. We have another one come in. So do you require a code review or any other controls for the highest risk apps? For example, apps that might be shared across the whole company, or apps containing intellectual property? Or do you think requiring a code review goes against the idea of citizen development?
Well, one of the standards with citizen development in our company is using the solution checker. So with that, if someone creates an app and they don't perform the preventive actions that the solution checker is advising them to do, we'll have visibility over that and we'll give it a check. Now, if it's a level V or C app for our company, and that definitely has another different level of supervision. And I think that it doesn't go against the concept of citizen development, because you will not always be a citizen developer, right? You will start as a citizen developer, and as a citizen developer, you will get into a certain level of projects with a certain level of complexity, and that will serve very specific purposes. Now, if you move to a power user, you will have different DLPs, different freedom, let's say, to develop, and IT will have a different level of supervision on your work. Now, if you're performing work for type B applications, as for example, IT will work together with the citizen developer. So I think that's part of what we were mentioning before. That's a synergy that needs to exist with IT providing support to citizen developers.
Fantastic. All right, so we have another question from Robert Stevens. Just to confirm, the automations developed by citizen devs are run under their own credentials, correct? And your thoughts about managing these through department or function-specific service accounts?
Okay, that's a good question. Well, as I did mention, there are some automations in our company that are run with the citizen development credentials, but that's depending on the support prioritization model. If your application, if your solution is categorized as important or critical, we go with service accounts, and we have the context for those service accounts. Citizen developers, when they create something, they need to define who's the primary response contact for that app. They need to set up a backup person that will provide support in terms that they are, in the case that they are not available. So that's the kind of measures that we take to try to avoid having orphan apps, as for example.
Great. Alex, you mind going in a little bit about, some of the challenges y'all faced when you started your citizen dev community at Boston Sci?
Yeah, of course. I think that the main challenge was related to understanding the concept of citizen development. It may scare some people, as Felipe mentioned. I think it's a disruptive concept. So helping people to understand what's the value that citizen development brings, helping IT to understand what kind of changes needs to happen in order to enable citizen development. I think that was the main challenge. But what we did was following a change management strategy that helped our IT members to understand that citizen developers were allies, and the benefit that it brought in terms of bringing relief to IT services, right? Because I think there's a permanent debt in IT with people, and citizen developers can really help to take that burden down.
Thank you. Got another question that came in through David Dean. Do you centralize ALM process, or do you allow developers to manage it themselves?
We allow them to manage it themselves, but we do have documented which environments set response to ALM in different business functions, right? What we did was, with our environment strategy that is based regionally and per business function, was providing them since the beginning with 3 environments: testing, development testing, and production. So they know what the process is. They can also check it in our communications hub. And if someone needs an environment for something that may not require a full ALM process, those environments are properly have their tags, so we can recognize.
Hey, while we're talking about environments, you mind describing a little bit about your environment strategy and the steps you took to really start developing that strategy?
Yes, of course. Well, I can mention that I think that the first step is understanding what's the structure of your organization. In Boston Scientific, we have people all around the world building apps. So we knew that one of the most important things for us was also being compliant with data regulations. So where data is stored is important for us. And starting with that point, we knew that our strategy should be based on different regions, right? So we have environments per each business function, depending on the region. Inside those environments, you will have different business units, child business units that may respond to their organization structure. And inside of those business units, you will also have teams. So as I mentioned, what we try to avoid is just providing environments for everything. So people have environments that they can refer to if they want to use them. But we also provide development environments, for example, for our pro users. And a pretty similar approach is the one that we follow for DLPs. So you have personal productivity or the default environment. That's just for a few use cases. If what you're going to build is just for you, or you will share with a maximum of 2 or 3 people, but you won't be able to connect to any data sources that have company data. Now, if you're building applications that may support your whole business function or your team, then you will have you'll have your organization's environment available for you to go and create that. And if you have specific use cases that may require a custom environment, we also provide those per demand. So everyone has an environment since the beginning that they can refer to, but if there's any specific need, we assess them and provide custom environments.
Great. Question on your COE. How do you staff your COE? Number of employees, roles, responsibilities, skills maybe you look for, or how do you scale it over time?
Well, the Power Platform administration team in our company has three people. So you have the governance lead, applications lead, and the skill lead. And the governance lead is the one in charge of the COE toolkit, for example. The applications lead is a solutions architect that takes care of assessing citizen development use cases that may require the manual check of an expert. And we have the skill lead that is the one who takes care of promoting citizen development in the company, as the main point of contact in terms of support. And it's also the one that takes care of scheduling office hours, hackathons, etc. So that's pretty much the structure that we have.
All right, we got another question here from David Dean. How do you mitigate citizen developed solutions in productivity data sources that contain PII or PHI data?
That's a good question. Well, part of the assessment that we do is that automation that I mentioned that that it's executed once they create a new app, right? They need to perform this. They need to give this kind of details when they create a new app. There's a specific data field that will ask them for that detail. And if they are using PI data, for example, we will assess it manually. So that's part of the solutions architecture.
Okay, and are you managing your governance? This is from Michael Fettner. Are you managing governance entirely with the COE, or do you also have third-party tools or custom developed tools to help you?
We have the COE, but we have a tool that we develop on our own that is, we call it the Center of Enablement. It basically extends the Center of Excellence capabilities, because I think that in some cases you may also have experienced that you will try to run some of the COE components, but some of those components uses Dataverse or may require premium connectors as well. So the charges for using the COE starter kit with some specific components may be high. So what we did was replacing those components with our own center of enablement. You'd have the Power Platform for Admin connector that will give you that data. So you really can go and build a Canvas app, build a system that can work as an appendix to the Center of Excellence starter kit. So that's what I was mentioning before, that it's not enough just installing the COE, you need to customize it. And this is a way that you can customize it. But no, we don't use third-party apps. I think for us it's enough with the Center of Excellence and with the Center of Enablement that we have.
All right, we got another one coming in. We have any suggestions on activating Power Apps component framework and the best way to manage it?
That's a very good question. I think we're not still there. So in our company, we still don't allow them to use it. That's something that we're still exploring. As I think Felipe mentioned, the adoption maturity model will show you probably when it's the best time to activate it or to have a structure that supports it. And unless in our company, we're still not there. So I would recommend you to not enable it since the beginning, but wait until your governance is more developed.
All right, another question around, I guess when you look at starting your citizen dev community, how did you get alignment with your executive leadership and get them to, I guess, help sponsor your efforts or back your efforts in using citizen devs or low code platform?
I think that we were really lucky in Boston Scientific, because at the same time that we were proposing citizen development program, they were also looking for ways to improve efficiency and also pretty much move from being a spreadsheet company to an apps company. So it really helped that they were looking for that kind of value improvement. And with citizen development, what we did, as I think I mentioned before, was going to our digital workplace and collaboration director. She helped us to go up and speak with executives that were in charge of allowing this to happen. And the main advice that I can give you is use top-down communication, focus on the risk mitigation value that it will provide in terms of shadow IT, focus on how citizen developers can contribute, how IT will get a relief in their burden of IT step with the business, and also focus on finding business cases that may support the reason of why citizen development should exist in your company, right? I think that we have business cases, for example, in Colombia, with an app that has, I think it's 600 users, if I'm not mistaken. And that has been everywhere. It's been analyzed for the rest of our Latin region. And that's the kind of business cases that we use to go on and speak with our executives and explain why citizen development was important.
Great. I don't think we have any other questions coming in. And thank you so much, Alex, Felipe, for presenting. Great job today. Great information. Lots of golden nuggets in there that we can take advantage of. And Scott, I'm going to hand it over to you and let you close it out.
Thank you, Randall. And thanks everybody for joining today. A special thank you to Felipe and Alex. That was awesome. And the discussion maybe even better. We're really, obviously we're brand new into this community here, but it's our goal here. Obviously, Randall and I are from Microsoft, so we're trying to facilitate this, but we want this to be, by the community for the community. So huge thank you to these guys. Thank you to Boston Scientific for allowing them to be here. And if anybody has, whether it's, you want to raise your hand to present like these folks did, if you want to suggest topics or ideas you want others to cover, or even Randall and I to cover, please, raise your hand, reach out to us. We've got a forum on the community group website, and then, you've got the ability to message us there, send me emails directly. And just a huge thank you to everybody here. Save your calendars for next February. Follow me on LinkedIn. I'll keep posting about the updates and things like that. Thank you all so much. You can find the recording on the community website after the fact here. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you.